story behind my immigration process from New Zealand to America. And first of all, you hear all the beautiful birds in the background. We're here in Auckland, New Zealand right now, staying at our house down here. So there's tuis and all kinds of native birds in the background, so giving you a little bit of that New Zealand flavor. So I thought it would be an interesting topic to touch on because I've been in America now for 11 years. I actually got my US citizenship last year. So I've been through the whole process from leaving my home country, New Zealand, Aotearoa, and traveling thousands of miles into the unknown by myself to meet Lauren. Now, I'll quickly touch on the story with Lauren. I think I'll probably do another video where I dive into that in more detail, but we connected about 12 years ago through Facebook, through some Facebook groups, mutual groups that we were in relating to health and fitness. And one of the things, we just connected. And one of the things that I thought about in my life was the what-ifs. You know, it's the what-ifs that will haunt you. And I thought about that back then. I thought to myself, if I don't come over and meet her and just experience what it could be like to connect with her in person, I'll always wonder what if. You know, I'll be 80 years old in my rocking chair and I'll always wonder what if that had worked out. What if I had taken that leap? And, you know, that mentality has always stuck with me, that it's the what ifs that will haunt you. So we connected. I just got off a bunch of my psychiatric medications. You know, I was very open about my mental health journey. I'd done, charity events in New Zealand. I'd been in the newspapers. It wasn't something I was hiding. And I thought to myself, what better way to sort of start fresh than to wean off everything? So I was going through this process of sort of figuring out my anxiety and all these different challenges that I'd been through. And so think about it. You're going from a place where you get crippling anxiety getting on the bus to go into college campus, and now you're flying on a jumbo jet halfway around the world to a country that is not your own to meet someone that you've never met before. So talk about throwing yourself in the deep end, right? But very often, some of the most beautiful moments in your life will lie on the other side of all of that. You know, way outside your comfort zone. Way outside your comfort zone. And I remember getting on the plane, and it was emotional because, you know, I had a little dog here that, you know, was my best friend, my dad, my family, my parents, my brother, all my friends, everything I'd ever known. And I got on the plane just with that notion of, you know, I'll see them again, but I don't know what it's going to look like moving forward. And got to the US and got off the plane, and I remember walking out of the terminal and seeing Lauren, just beautiful. And, you know, when we hugged, it was like, it almost felt like I'd just been away for a while. It's almost like, you know, if you'd been on like a deployment for 6 months and you're coming back, it felt like that. It felt like I had been here before, and, you know, and the connection was genuine. You know, it really made me realize that, you know, if you're honest with people online, you can develop very genuine connections. And I remember I was there on a 3-month visitor's visa, because with the US, you know, if you're not a US citizen, you have a 3-month period you can be there legally before you have to leave. And it's funny because you have this little window of opportunity, and you basically have two options. One, you can either just pull the trigger and get married. And obviously you have to show a lot of proof that it's legitimate, and you're not just coming to the US to get citizenship and use the person and all kinds of stuff. There is a litany of things that you have to go through. You get interrogated. You get absolutely interrogated. They tease through your life with a fine-tooth comb. And I remember, and the other option is you go back to the country you're from, and then you try to file for an adjustment of visa status from the other country. The challenge with that, though, is that when the American immigration department knows that you're outside the country, there's no rush to process you, because they're like, oh, well, you know, he's just going to have to wait. Whereas if you're in the country, they sort of expedite your process because they want to get you through the system because they know you're here, and they basically just want to get you processed. And so we got a immigration attorney to help us, because it can be very confusing. There's a lot of legalese, there's a lot of application forms, there's a lot of stuff you have to know and do. It can be quite stressful depending on your background. Like if you have a clean background, I mean, you're good. But if you're someone like me who had a bit of a checkered past and you'd been a freaking idiot in your old life and done some dumb shit, then those types of things can really come back to haunt you if you're not careful. And that's why now it's like I'm so wary of just being conscious about the decisions that I make in general, because most people just don't think of the long-term repercussions of a lot of things. And so I'd done some dumb shit when I was younger in terms of cannabis possession, and then damage to a vehicle while intoxicated, and I got diversion, which is basically like your first offence and your record gets expunged. But so for that reason, in New Zealand, if they were to pull up my name, there'd be nothing on file. But obviously, even though it's expunged, it's existing somewhere. Your name it's probably like on Interpol or something, or like, it's some high level system. And so we had to go through this whole thing of like trying to gather the actual records of my diversion, even though they didn't exist on the system. And so that was like a whole process in and of itself. And I was so nervous because I was thinking to myself, okay, like drug charge. There's a lot of people online that have said that, with drug charges, they got denied. And I was thinking, man, my old life has wrecked me. My old life has just done me in. I'm a goddamn idiot. And I remember we did this adjustment of visa status, where you basically then you get married, and then you go through this adjustment process to get a temporary green card. So the temporary green card is easier to get because it's just temporary, because at that point they're just doing it to keep you in the system before you get a permanent green card, which is where they really vet the hell out of your background and your intentions. And so I remember, we got married on the beach in Destin, and it was beautiful. It was funny because it was a really hot day, and typical fashion with a lot of women, Lauren was late to the beach. So I'm out there on the beach sweating bullets. I'm like sweating through my white shirt. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like scorching. I'm not used to this being from New Zealand. And I remember we got married on the beach, and because she was late, it was like the middle of the day, so the sun was like beating down. And I remember at the end, once it was all done, I was so excited to jump in the water. I literally just like threw myself in the water with all my clothes on. And I remember putting her foot on top of me, like sort of as if she'd like conquered a mountain or something. And it was cool because my dad was there. My dad came out from New Zealand, and I think that added a lot of credibility to the sort of the marriage and the immigration perception's eyes, that there's family from both sides there and things like that. Anyway, it's one of those things where it's a waiting game. If any of you guys have gone through an immigration process, you'll know it's a waiting game where it just takes forever. I mean, forever. So you're kind of waiting in limbo, and you just don't know what's going to happen. It is definitely teaches you how to control your nervous system, because every now and then you'll get a letter in the mail from the US Immigration Department, and then your heart starts to race. You're thinking, okay, am I going to open this and it's like declined? Or am I going to open this and it's going to say something negative? And I remember getting the letters, and the letters were late. So I was thinking every day, I'm like, oh man, where is it? What's going on? And I remember getting the letters, and it's scheduled for my interview. So in New Orleans, we had to head into New Orleans to the immigration center, where an immigration officer would basically interview us and audit us and go through our ring binder of documentation and joint bills and all kinds of stuff, guys. I mean, it's crazy the amount of shit that you have to present to them. But I understand at the same time that they want to make sure that it's legitimate and people aren't trying to fudge the system. And so we went out there, and I remember just like being so nervous. But at the same time, I thought to myself, there's nothing to hide. Like, this is legitimate. I genuinely love her. I want to be here. I want to contribute to society. I don't have anything to hide at this point. And I think that is ultimately what shines through. The fact that if you're genuine and your intentions are good, they will pick up on that. And I remember going through the process and finally getting the green card. And I cannot tell you how much of a relief that felt. I think it was about 2 or 3 years in, getting my green card. Now, with a green card, what it means is you can get a state driver's license. You'll pay taxes. You'll do your typical stuff. The only thing that you can't do is you cannot vote. So you cannot vote in political elections. So at least, thank God, like I got through that process. And then it's a longer process to get your US citizenship. And I actually think you can get it maybe after 7 years. I forget the exact, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I forget now because it's been a while. But I didn't get it straight away just because it's one of those things where if you're traveling a lot and you're out of state like we were, you have to go back to the location that you did originally everything in. So it's just one of those things where it was kind of like, it's kind of challenging. You have to go through a whole application filing process. You have to go through the whole thing basically again. So I was like, oh man. But I thought to myself, I want to do it because I want to know that, like, I'm a functioning part of society, and I want to know I've done it the right way. And at that point in time, like I genuinely considered myself a patriot. Like I had many friends that were special operators, veterans, first responders, just people who were like good American people, and I really wanted to sort of honor them by doing this. So it was like one of those things, and also from the idea of like, Lauren's American and Zia's got dual citizenship, and I just wanted to know that like I'm meant to be there. Like there's nothing that could happen where I just all of a sudden get like deported and ejected from the country basically. So I went through the immigration, the US citizenship process legally. It's called N400 for naturalization. And it's a lot like the green card stuff, like it's that they'll go through your history, but this time around, like they want to know that you know a bit of shit about the country. I mean, about the Constitution, about the Bill of Rights, about the American history, what it was founded on. I would actually say that a lot of Americans don't understand a lot of this stuff. I think it needs to be taught more in schools again, because I think in many ways we get away from some of the foundational principles as to why this country was created in the first place and what the Constitution even means. And I think the Constitution is arguably one of the most important documents in human history in terms of protecting the citizens from a tyrannical government. And a lot of people they cannot wrap their head around that. Especially a lot of New Zealanders cannot wrap their head around that. And why would anyone need a gun? Well, part of it is it's not for hunting. It's so the population can protect themselves from a tyrannical, oppressive government. And we see oppressive governments pop up everywhere, especially after what's happened in the last few years with suppression everywhere. So that being said, guys, it was like such a journey. It was such a roller coaster of emotions. It's pretty cool now to think, hey, like I have dual citizenship, Zia has dual citizenship, and that this coming election is the first election I can actually vote in, which is exciting as well. But it's one of those things where it does take time. You've got to really practice patience, and you have to really get your head in the zone and recognize that it's going to test you. There will be periods where you feel stressed, but it's one of those things where it's like full circle coming back to the point at the start. If you don't take leaps into the unknown in your life, it's the what-ifs that are going to haunt you. And so now, 11 years on, married, US citizen, have our daughter Zia, who's 5 at the time of this video. None of this would have come to be had I not made that decision to leap. So now it really reminds me of the power of just leaping into the unknown. So I just wanted to share that with you because I think that for a lot of people, travel can be scary. Moving to another country can be very anxiety-inducing. And very often we play in our comfort zone. And this is your message today, to say, hey, take those leaps in your life. Thinking from that notion of it's the what-ifs that will haunt me. And so I'm just going to take those bold leaps now and chalk it up as learning experiences, because either way, you're going to win. You'll win or you'll learn.